She was just the janitor, sweeping the linoleum halls of the city hospital late on a Friday night, when they started whispering, quiet at first, until their laughter cut through the silence like shrapnel. It was that tattoo on her forearm, half hidden beneath her worn work sleeve. A delicate black viper coiled tight, its eyes sharp and unyielding. They laughed because to them, it was just an odd little decoration. To them, she was just an invisible cleaner in a battered gray uniform, pushing her mop bucket on wheels, no one worth noticing. They had no idea what that snake really meant, no idea who she really was. Not a single one of them suspected that the woman wheeling past them was a ghost walking among the living, a warrior far from the battlefield but carrying the scars and stories of Delta Force. She had 4 minutes to stop them, 4 minutes before chaos unfolded, a reminder that heroes don't always wear camouflage openly, and none of those loudmouths would know what hit them until it was too late. She was 34 years old, her dark hair pulled back into a low, practical ponytail, a few stubborn strands framing a face that held more secrets than smiles. She wasn't just tired, she was carrying a weight no one could see. Her left leg ended just below the knee. A sleek prosthetic, custom-fitted, hummed quietly when she moved, blending too perfectly with her quiet steps that no one at the hospital gave a second thought. The janitor with the limp nobody pitied. It was an image she wore like armor. Every day for 3 years she had performed the same routine, clean this hallway, mop that floor, empty those bins, watching people walk past like she was a ghost, a part of the hospital's background noise. She never complained. She never stopped. Because no one saw her, she was invisible on purpose, and that made what happened next even sharper. That night, the usual weekend cleaning crew had gone home. The hospital corridors were haunted by the echoes of hushed conversations, distant alarms, the occasional flicker from overhead fluorescent lights. She was alone near the ER entrance, finishing up when a group of 3 men staggered in, their laughter carrying as they leaned on the walls. 2 of them wore scrubs but with sloppy badges taped on their chests, evidence of some unauthorized hospital access. The third was a lanky man in civilian clothes, smirking like he owned the place. They spotted her immediately, the lone janitor with the tattoo peeking out, and something about her unsettled them. Maybe it was the way her gaze met theirs without flinching. Maybe it was that silent confidence or the prosthetic leg, because mocking someone who's already broken is the easiest kind of cruelty. "Heh, nice snake there," the lanky man sneered, stepping forward, voice loud enough for the whole cramped hallway to hear. "Does that mean you're some sort of venomous little bug? Or is it just a fancy tattoo someone gave you because you're too lazy to do your real job?" He laughed, as did the others, nudging each other in derision like they were announcing the grandest joke of the night. One of the scrubbers spat on the floor near her feet, the act crude and deliberate, a challenge. The janitor didn't respond. Her fingers tightened around the mop handle, knuckles pale but steady. She didn't flinch, didn't speak, didn't move. The second man stepped even closer, invading her personal space, his breath smelling of stale beer and cigarettes. "What's the matter?" "No words. You too scared, cripple," he jeered, pushing the mop bucket hard. The wheels rattled loudly and the bucket toppled toward her, water sloshing out and soaking the front of her uniform. The cold splash was unexpected, but she stayed upright, eyes fixed on the man. The others laughed harder, surrounding her like sharks circling prey. "Maybe I should help you clean yourself up. Or better yet, maybe you're better off in some damn nursing home." The civilian shoved her roughly on the shoulder, unbalancing her. That's when the hospital security arrived. A young soldier in green fatigues, fresh from training at Fort Benning, doing attachment duty at the hospital. He froze mid-step as his eyes caught the unmistakable insignia on the janitor's wrist. The coiled viper wasn't a mere tattoo. It was the symbol of Ember 2, a classified Delta Force operator designation used only within the highest circles. He knew immediately. His face went pale. 15 seconds later, his radio crackled quietly behind him. "Code Delta 12, possible civilian disturbance. Need backup downtown ER." Silence settled over the men, their confidence cracking. No one was sure why the uniformed soldier was standing so still, eyes fixed on that tattoo, on the woman who hadn't moved an inch despite the insults and the spilled water. She was still the janitor, but now she was also something else, a memory long buried in the military archives, alive and watching. None of them realized that within 4 minutes, the hall that had been her battlefield would explode into controlled chaos, and that those minutes were a countdown for justice, for respect, for the reckoning they never saw coming. Behind the restroom door 2 corridors down, a phone beeped rapidly. A call was coming in. A direct message to an old military contact she hadn't spoken to in years. The code name flashed on the screen. Raven. She took a deep breath, wiped the soaked part of her uniform with practiced precision, and wheeled herself away from the corner where the bullies still muttered about her. Nobody saw it, but beneath her sleeve on the side of her prosthetic leg was a small panel, a hidden insignia, etched metal glinting faintly under the sterile lights. The Delta Force winged dagger. It was a silent declaration of the battles she'd fought, battles no one here could ever understand. The 3 men, unaware of what was about to unfold, exchanged smug glances and turned their attention back to their antics, leaning loudly against the walls. But their bravado was fading. Footsteps echoed farther down the hall, deep, steady, unmistakably military. 8 men in black tactical gear filed into the hospital's emergency entrance just as the clock ticked closer to 0. Their faces were shadowed beneath helmets, but their presence spoke louder than words. They moved like predators, silent, deadly, assured. The senior among them, a tall man with a scar cutting across his cheek, glanced at the janitor. Recognition flickered in his eyes. "Raven," he murmured under his breath. "You didn't think you could hide here." Back upstairs in the hospital cafeteria, the 3 men still laughed, oblivious now to the storm heading their way. They surrounded their target, ready for more humiliation, more cruelty. But the janitor's eyes narrowed. Those 4 minutes weren't just time to stop them. They were time to remind everyone that invisibility was a choice, and sometimes it meant waiting to be seen in a way no one could ignore. She flexed her fingers around the mop handle, the only weapon she needed at the moment, but she wasn't alone. Not anymore. She was Master Sergeant Elise Raven Morno, a former Delta Force operator who had survived 3 combat deployments, including Operation Crimson Thorn in Kabul 5 years ago, where she had single-handedly neutralized 100 insurgents to save a convoy of 23 soldiers. The explosion that cost her a leg was classified off the books, the details hidden beneath layers of secrecy. When she returned home, the army sent her away to recover, hoping she'd fade into obscurity. Instead, she chose to disappear in plain sight, to become the janitor everyone overlooked. Until tonight, the tallest man among the arriving CLS reached out and gently touched her shoulder. "No one's forgotten you, Raven." His voice was low but firm, carrying the weight of battles shared and respect earned. Behind them, the hospital's night shift staff watched from behind doors and windows, suddenly aware that the quiet woman who cleaned floors was the fiercest soldier in any room. The bullies stopped their teasing, sensing the unspoken warning in the air. But it was too late for apologies. The clock was ticking down, and the janitor was ready to show them all what total defense looked like. The janitor's dark eyes flicked up just enough to catch the subtle shift in the room. The way those 3 men's laughter faltered as the black-clad figures stepped into the fading light beyond the ER doors. 8 Navy SEALs, every muscle taut beneath gear that seemed to swallow light and sound, filled the corridor with an unshakable sense of finality. The tallest among them scanned the group, eyes cold and assessing until they rested on her. The janitor in the gray uniform with the soaked front and the unmistakable viper tattoo curling around her wrist like a silent promise. "Raven," he said quietly, voice low enough only she could hear, "time's up." Her breath didn't quicken, but a controlled tension radiated through her, as if the years of discipline and battle-hardened training compressed into the tiniest movement of her hand tightening on the mop handle. The 3 men who had been so loud and cruel just moments before now shrank under the weight of that single word. The lanky man, the instigator, blinked uncertainly. His bravado crashed against images he couldn't unsee, the emblem on her prosthetic leg, the way the security soldier had frozen like a statue earlier when he recognized that symbol. They had mocked a ghost, a shadow of a warrior who had walked through more hell than any of them could imagine. "What the hell are you guys waiting for?" The shortest scrub snapped, desperation starting to seep into his voice. "Let's just leave. This isn't worth it." But it was too late. 10 seconds passed like an eternity, and the squad leader, a man whose voice carried the authority only earned through years of grueling missions, and Sacrifice cracked a half-smile that reached the scar running down one cheek. "You mocked a ghost, gentlemen, and she doesn't take kindly to it." His gaze swept over the room, settling briefly on each of the bullies. "You'll apologize to Master Sergeant Elise Morneau before we're done here." She finally spoke, no longer the quiet janitor but the Delta Force operator with a voice steady and sharp as a blade. "You're out of time," Raven said, her tone calm but final. The mop handle slipped through her fingers like a baton handed off. Her prosthetic leg whirred quietly as she shifted weight, preparing for the inevitable as backup arrived. Hospital staff cautiously peeked out from behind doors and windows, their faces a mix of awe and disbelief, as the woman they had overlooked was revealed to be the fiercest presence in the building. The tallest scrubber took a step back, swallowing his fear. "Look, we didn't know. We thought you were just janitor. We were wrong." The words spilled out, shaky and hesitant, a far cry from the earlier arrogance. The other two men followed, their faces pale, voices cracking as the reality of who they had confronted crashed down around them like the walls of a crumbling bunker. The senior SEAL stepped forward, gesturing to her prosthetic panel where the gleaming winged dagger lay hidden moments before. "You see this? That's not just a badge or a tattoo. It's a mark of a warrior who's been to hell and back. Raven has saved 23 soldiers with her own two hands, and she lost a leg doing it. You owe her respect." Suddenly, the hospital's security soldier who had initially frozen was back at her side, his voice firm now, radio clipped to his chest. "Backups arrived, but you don't need it. She's capable." And he meant it. No one argued when Raven's remaining teammates moved across the hall, securing the area within moments. The tension that had thickened the air dissolved, replaced by a stark understanding. This janitor wasn't just a survivor. She was an avenger, ready to right the wrongs in her silent, deadly way. Raven's mind flashed back briefly to that fateful day in Kabul 5 years ago. The convoy trapped on a narrow mountain pass, insurgents closing in from all sides, her squad pinned down with no clear way out. The world exploded around her as she grabbed a grenade from a fallen comrade, pulling it beneath her body and absorbing the blast to shield 23 soldiers behind her. That day, she earned her nickname and lost a part of herself, but gained a legacy that only a few could ever claim. No mention of medals or awards she'd refused, only the quiet pride of duty fulfilled and lives saved. Back in the hallway, her prosthetic leg hummed again as she took the first step toward the trio of men who had thought her disposable. The squad leader nodded, signaling the hospital staff to step back. That mop bucket, once a symbol of her invisibility, was now a silent weapon in a warrior's hands. She raised the mop handle like a rifle, not to scare, but to command. "You will apologize, not just to me, but to everyone in this hospital who trusted you not to be cowards." Her voice rose, steady and unrelenting. The three men, stripped of their arrogance, stammered through apologies, their desperation transparent. "I'm sorry, Master Sergeant Morneau. We didn't mean to disrespect you." "You mocked a ghost," Raven said, "and you let her live." The SEALs relaxed just enough to let tension seep from their shoulders, but the message was clear. This place was under their protection now, a fortress where neither bullies nor cowards could find refuge. Raven's gaze swept the corridor one last time, the weight of her presence commanding reverence. She wasn't here to punish, only to reclaim the respect denied to her and others like her every day. Minutes later, hospital administration and security gathered, nodding respectfully as they recognized the quiet power in Raven's unwavering stance. A handwritten note circulated, signed by every member of the night shift staff, acknowledging her service and bravery. A small plaque was quietly hung in the janitor's closet that night, not for the mopping or the sweeping, but for courage under fire. The message was simple and clear. Heroes come in many faces, some with prosthetic legs, some with mop handles, but all worthy of honor. And as she wheeled herself toward the exit, her team falling silently in step behind her, Raven felt the familiar sting of exhaustion mixed with something far rarer, pride. She wasn't invisible anymore. Not tonight. She was seen. The soldiers who had once been shadows and ghosts now walked beside her in uniform, a shield against the world's ignorance and cruelty. 4 minutes, she whispered, was all it took. The night was quiet again, but the meaning behind it roared louder than any alarm. In the days that followed, the hospital's staff and patients learned the real story. How the janitor who had been humiliated and underestimated was a decorated veteran, how she had faced impossible odds on distant battlefields and lived. News crews came calling, but Raven declined the spotlight, choosing privacy over publicity. Her mission had always been protection, not fame. But the respect was there now, etched into the hospital's culture and whispered reverently among staff. And those three men, their consequences were swift and public. Suspended without pay, prohibited from hospital premises, forced into counseling programs designed to address their unacceptable behavior. No longer could they hide behind mockery or anonymity. They had been reminded that real warriors don't just fight on battlefields. They fight for respect, dignity, and justice wherever the fight is needed. Elise Raven, Morno's story became a quiet beacon, a reminder that courage isn't always loud but always undeniable. That strength is measured not by uniform, but by the heart beneath it. She wheeled through those hospital halls as more than a janitor, a symbol of perseverance, a protector in unexpected places, a living testament that sometimes the greatest battles happen when the world thinks you're invisible. Her tattoo was no longer a secret. It was a badge of honor, a story written in ink and steel. And the next time someone looked past her, underestimating the janitor with the viper coiled tight on her wrist, they would know. They were staring at a legend, not a shadow. The woman who had 4 minutes to stop them, and did it without breaking a sweat. The warrior disguised as a janitor, who taught everyone that true heroism doesn't announce itself. It waits, watches, and strikes when the time is right. And when it does, no one is left wondering who saved the day.